Welcome to Art Bazaar, a podcast that chats with artists of all types to explore the depths of creativity. Brought to you by the Alternative Gallery. We'll be releasing new episodes every Wednesday with bonus episodes dropping randomly. If you like what you're hearing, you can support this podcast by going to thealternativegallery.com and clicking on the podcast tab. I'm your host, Brandon Wonder, creative director of the Alternative Gallery, a non-profit arts organization in Allentown, PA, run through the efforts of dedicated volunteers. On this episode of Art Bazaar, we'll be chatting with Alexa-Nichole Villafana, a fashion designer and journalist from the Lehigh Valley. Alexa's work in the arts specialize in supporting young artists and local talent. She also runs a fashion brand called SERAPHIM, which will have new pieces on display at Pulse, a fashion and music fusion show on Saturday, November 11th, right here at the Alternative Gallery, featuring 4 fashion designers, 6 live performances, and a variety of vendors. Alexa is actually hosting the event. To view her work or learn more about what she does, check her out on Instagram at shop_seraphim. Welcome to the Art Bazaar, Alexa.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very happy to have you here and all the great stuff you've been putting together here.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
So tell those who might not have had the opportunity to meet Alexa before, what is your art and how did you get into it?
I'll just tell a quick story about how I got into my art. I took a remedial sewing class in upstate New York at SUNY Fredonia, and my professor had us sewing, and I felt so annoyed at how slow we were going in this class. And she was like, "You've done this before, haven't you?" I was like, "Yeah, I have, with like my grandma and stuff." And then she said, "Maybe you should take this seriously." The pandemic hit. I took a gap year off of school and I started sewing. I was going on a walk one day, I like walks, and I found a shop with a bunch of angels in a window display, and it said in front of it, "Your angels are with you." And I was like, I'm calling my clothing brand SERAPHIM. And that's how I'm here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an incredible story.
Thank you.
How many years ago was that you first got that inspiration to launch this thing?
That was 2019. It was like just as things were getting crazy. So
you got your idea and the world falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, everybody's like, the pandemic was so crazy. I actually had a great time.
Well, I think for a lot of people, the pandemic was a pause from the normal way of doing things, which wasn't working for a lot of people. And it was an opportunity for people to focus on something new.
Yeah.
So do you think without the pandemic, you maybe wouldn't have gone this far down the road?
I would have been a different person without it, and not in a good way. All the transitions and changes that happened, I think they happened so seamlessly for a reason, and I'm just so happy with where I am now.
So
really
describe your fashion. What kind of stuff? Because fashion is so diverse. What kind of stuff do you create?
So most of my clothing is based off of Renaissance and medieval art. I am a huge fan of theology. My faith plays a really huge role in everything that I do. So I try to incorporate that into my clothing. I love nature. I love natural things. So a lot of my clothes are made out of recycled materials, such as old blankets, thrifted fabric, and I like to work with what the fabric likes to do, and I perfect it from there.
So do you consider your work upcycled, sustainable? How do you refer to it?
I'm going to be honest. I don't like those. I find those terms to be kind of like woke, politically correct.
Oh, of course.
But when you really look at it, yes, they are sustainable. Yes, they are upcycled.
So what would you call, or do you not have a term?
I don't have a term for it.
You don't have a term.
It's just art.
It's just your art.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
You remind me of what Steph was saying on the last podcast episode, where she doesn't like compartments and labels aren't always the best way to go. Yeah, I like that a lot. So what motivates you to create?
The role of being a creator is something so beautiful, and to really take that and everything that goes into that. Being in the arts is not as fuzzy and rainbows and unicorns as everybody thinks, and I know that you know that.
All too well, dear.
I know. It's the act of putting your heart into something and seeing results from what you do that I love. And those results, getting those results and getting better and better every time, I'm addicted to this feeling.
So it's kind of the process that inspires you just to keep going on its own. Do you get, like, what triggers ideas for you? Do they come from all sorts of places?
They come from everywhere. They come from artwork. I watch a lot of documentaries.
Great.
So I would see, like, Jan van Eyck, he's a Dutch painter. I would see one of his works, or I'd be listening to a documentary about that. And I'm just like, whoa, this piece, and then like the biblical meaning behind it, it's just so profound. I have to do something with it.
Do you have a lot of coffee table books about religious art?
Yeah. Old stuff.
Yeah?
Books that smell old. You know?
Hey, I love going into old bookstores.
Yeah.
Way more than bookstores that only sell new stuff. Because in a used bookstore, you don't know what you're going to come across.
Yeah.
Now, you said documentaries.
Yes.
What kind of documentaries do you like to watch? I'm curious.
I watch a lot of history documentaries with old British people. I like when you can hear, like, this is going to sound so weird, but I like when they're talking and you can, like,
I think that's a very common thing.
and it's like ASMR almost.
Well, their speech, the way they speak almost makes them sound more intelligent than us
true.
Americans.
It's
I think
true.
that's what it is.
Yeah. I love that. It's just something about their aesthetic paired with the art. And you know those documentaries that have like the crispy old quality and like the classical music in the background?
Of course.
That just puts me in a different time altogether. And I'm like, I want to be there.
I think movies are magical in that way. Same thing with photography. You're literally capturing reality or a moment in reality in history that you get to share for generations to come. You don't have to describe this situation. You can show it.
Yeah.
Especially with documentary, you're capturing reality.
Yes.
And one of the terms for documentaries are actuality films,
Yes.
which I love.
I love that word in general.
Do you watch any art documentaries?
Yeah.
Who are some of the artists that you kind of navigate towards, like that motivate you and inspire you?
They're all dead. They're all dead. Like,
Unfortunately, my heroes are the same way.
like died in the 1500s
Oh,
and
no.
1600s.
I'm talking about like George Carlin and Hunter Thompson, guys that died a decade or two ago. 1500s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jan van Eyck, Hieronymus Bosch, the greats.
Do you listen to a lot of classical music then too?
Oh, yeah. Because people maybe aren't tapped into like the treasure trove that is antiquity, that you're just like, okay, well, you don't get it, but I do. Not to sound like obnoxious. There's something about having knowledge that a lot of people are not, aware of, or that they don't care about.
Just a lack of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes you realize, that makes you step back and look at the bigger picture.
Well, I think in general, let me just look something up here quick. I want to look up the highest grossing documentary of all time. All right? Let's see. I think I know what it is, but I just want to be sure and see how much it was. All-time worldwide documentary box office. Number 1 is Michael Jackson's This Is It.
Really? Okay. I like Michael Jackson.
Worldwide box office, 252 million, which, I mean, that's less than 1/4 of what Barbie made.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the most successful documentary of all time. To me, that says people aren't as interested in documentaries, which is why I looked it up.
To me, it says people have bad taste, but
I like this. Number 13 and 14, Jackass and Jackass number 2. Great.
Those are documentaries?
I can technically, yes.
How?
Well, I mean, they're a shit show, but they're still technically documentaries.
Okay.
So do you surround yourself with a lot of artists? Do you navigate more towards artists, or do you have a variety of different types of people around you?
I have a variety of people around me, but I went to a performing arts high school. So because of that, a lot of my social circles do happen to be like mostly artists.
Interesting. Now, those kids from that school, a lot of them still working in the arts. Are you still in communication with those kids?
A lot of them are still in the arts, or if they're not like fully in it, they have a side gig that's in the arts.
Did they stay here in the Lehigh Valley? Did they go elsewhere?
A lot of them are in Philly, actually.
They moved to Philly. Why do you think they moved there?
Because they have the impression that where there's more people and where there's more lights, there's more opportunity. And something I love to stress to people who are still, in the Valley is that this is the best place to grow. It's oversaturated in cities.
It could be the best place to grow, but unfortunately we don't have the environment that fosters that, which makes it a little tough. And I think that's why a lot of those artists go to Philly and even New York, unfortunately. And we were talking about this in the last podcast, me and Steph, that artists here in Allentown kind of always give it a break saying, oh, well, it's not as big as Philly or New York. That's why there's not really support for the arts.
Right.
But then I use that example of Lancaster in that conversation, which is much smaller than Allentown. Well, how comes Allentown doesn't have nearly as flourishing of an art scene as Lancaster, and they're smaller?
Yeah.
So it's not really about size. It's about who's cultivating, who's nurturing.
Exactly.
And I think that's where you and I come in because we don't have those resources and opportunities here. We're forced to make it happen for ourselves and the people that we think are doing awesome work. I want to talk a little bit about your event here because I think there's a lot to unfold. Is this the first event you've hosted?
This is the first event I've hosted.
Really?
Yes.
I feel very honored that you're doing it here.
I'm honored that you're letting me do it here.
So why don't you talk a little bit about the show?
Sure. So Pulse, a fashion and music fusion, will be happening at the Alternative Gallery on November 11th at 7 p.m. This show has been in the works actually for 6 months, since April. So this kind of is a project that's in conjunction with my magazine, creative magazine called Network Exchange. The whole point of that is to showcase young and upcoming business owners and creatives who, like you said, don't feel as though, their art is being fostered here. Something that was part of that, we had a 6-month plan that we had to make. At the end of the 6 months was public emergence. And here we are 6 months later, on time with the public emergence.
An artist on time. I am not used to that. Congratulations on your 6-month plan. I'm really happy that you were able to put that together. So what sparked the plan though? What made you want to do this in the first place?
Well, I love fashion, obviously. And I love event organizing. I like getting people excited about things. And I also love uplifting my fellow artists, So I was like, what is something that I can do to combine all three of those things? A fashion show with, vendors, designers, local musicians, making it happen.
So you kind of had the destination in mind and worked backwards, it sounds. Now, what were the steps leading up to that then? So we know where you ended. Where did you start?
This idea was planted when, in April, I was working on the entrepreneurship program at the CIE at Northampton. I won first place. Yay.
Congrats.
Thank you. And from there, we launched the magazine and we were given like $1,000. And he said, make your dream a reality. And I was like, okay, daunting task, but I'll do it. What I will say is people who have supported me have made this thing so much easier. Like I've had great mentors who have I had a mentor who printed 16 of my magazines for free and they were 64 pages each.
Wow.
I had a mentor who put me onto other people who did fashion. One of my mentors, Catherine, she was one of the co-founders for the creation of the Beauty Blender. These are big people. And so I was really privileged to be in the right place at the right time.
I think you find yourself in a position that a lot of other artists might not realize. And what I mean by that is a lot of artists want to do something and need resources, not realizing that within their network, they already have those resources.
Yeah.
But the people who are kind of holding them or can help get access to them, they're not aware that artist needs them.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important for artists, if you want to do something, tell everyone who will listen to you about your project, even if they get annoyed. Especially if they get annoyed, because if they're annoyed, they're going to remember that shit. Like, this guy was going on and on and on about doing this magazine, and just then I realized, like, oh, wait, no, my friend actually does printing. Like, you never know. Like, I have a friend that wants to open up an arcade here in Allentown, and we were talking, and he realized he actually had all the resources to make this happen through the people he already knew. And he was amazed at how easy it was.
Yeah.
And I think you were very fortunate in the fact that you had that encouraging push. And a lot of artists don't get that.
Yeah.
And that's what I long for this podcast to be, is for those artists who may be somewhere that might not have a supportive art community, or they might not even have other friends who are artists to talk with. And doesn't matter. You can still make it happen. The point is, start having a conversation, and you're proof it worked for you.
Yeah.
So these people all come together, right? How did you start taking those first real steps to putting this show together? Like, who were you reaching out to first? The designers, the performers?
So I knew my stuff was going to go up regardless of whether or not other people were there.
Of course. At least you're sharing the stage there.
Oh, of course. The person who really got this thing going with me is Natasha. Natasha is my second in command. We met at this natural perfume store in Stroudsburg, and I was looking at her. She was next to me. I was like, I like your earrings. And we just started talking from there. And we got into such a profound conversation. We have similar morals. She's West Indian. I'm West Indian. I was like, great. Don't got to worry about that. And she also worked backstage during Fashion Week. And she also did PR, which is what I'm trying to get
Fashion Week in New York City.
Yes, Fashion Week in New York City.
Believe it or not, I used to work Fashion Week both in February and September for years.
Really?
Yeah, when I lived and worked in New York City in the film industry, and I would pick up side gigs setting up these fashion shows.
That is so cool.
Before I moved back here to start the gallery.
Like set design?
I worked for this company. We would set up the projectors. We would set up the pipe and drape. We would lay out the green rooms, and we would have to be there for a lot of these events to help them out and just look after things. I got to work with literally the most beautiful people in the world. Celebrities, celebrity fashion designers. Cool. Getting access to very, very exclusive and expensive fashion shows in New York City. It was incredible. Wow. I'm like, how the hell did I get here?
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Anyone that you can name?
Not off the top of my head. A lot of them were European designers. I don't remember there being too many American designers in the events that I worked. A lot of European models. Very, very tall, very, very blonde, very, very skinny. Everyone gorgeous as hell.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was just great insight. This was, of course, before we started the gallery, so I didn't really know where things were taking me in New York because the film thing is, I wasn't making my own stuff in New York. I was working on other people's projects. So I was kind of floating through life. So life pushing me back here to Allentown is weirdly enough what gave me direction. But then coming back here, I would still go and take gigs there every now and then. But I haven't done Fashion Week there in a while, but one day you'll be there.
God willing. God willing.
Why can't it happen?
Exactly.
Why not?
Where there's a will, there's a way.
You probably already know someone that can get you in there.
Maybe, hopefully.
You do. I'm sure you do. Now, these other fashion designers you're working with, I know one of them's from Philadelphia.
Yes.
Tell me about them. What do they do?
So, we have a very interesting and diverse mix here. For designers, we have Lexi Doan. We have Medea. I forgot her last name, but her brand is called Family Name. It's inspired by menswear. Lexi's clothing is inspired by Vietnamese opera.
Wow, that's very specific.
I know, Vietnamese opera, and it's actually dying out. So what she's doing is representing a dying art, which I think is beautiful.
Not just an art, but a culture, it sounds.
Yes.
Wow. Yes.
So if you come, you have the pleasure of seeing those beautiful pieces.
You buying a ticket is helping keeping culture alive. Now you listeners have to show up.
No pressure, guys. Anyway.
No, just a little.
So it is Medea for Family Name. Her clothing is inspired by menswear. Such an interesting take on menswear as well. A lot of big ties, a lot of exaggerated male silhouettes on non-traditional models.
Interesting.
Yeah. And last but not least, we have Castillo. He makes a lot of deconstructed clothing. So a lot of that is streetwear inspired by kind of opium, the opium style that's really in right now. It's a mix of designers plus me.
Now, these designers, have they been a part of other events before, or is this the first event for a lot of these designers?
So they've actually done other events before. This is my first, and they've done stuff before, so I'm really grateful that they're like, hey, we're going to give this rookie a try.
And you know what? This goes back to the question I just asked you right before, the statement I made about how you probably already have access to...
Hey.
I guarantee you they have a network.
Yeah.
Now, are they going to tap into the network to bring them out for this event too? Is that part of the idea?
Yes.
It's so diverse as far as, it's not like you just picked one style.
Nope.
It sounds like every single designer is radically different. Mm-hmm. That was intentional.
Of course.
Great.
Yeah.
And how do you think those designs are going to mesh side by side? Because I know I saw a preview last week. Mm-hmm. So I got a little glimpse.
Yeah.
Now, from what you've seen so far, is it all flowing the way you had hoped?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah? So your vision is just unfolding perfectly.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
A dream come true, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you want to keep doing shows like this? What is the plan? I know this is the first one, and maybe it's too early and maybe getting ahead of yourself, but who cares? Let's get ahead of ourselves. What do you want to do after this? Do you want to keep doing shows here in the Valley? Do you want to do shows in New York? Do you want to take the show on the road? What's the plan? What's the dream?
Shows in the Valley at bigger venues with a lot of influential people. I want them to know that talent can come from anywhere. You don't have to be of a certain class to bring your A game, you know? It comes from everywhere. You just have to have that drive. From there, want to go back to the Poconos, because that's my hometown, you know, Stroudsburg. I want to go there, have a big show, and have people come out. Stroudsburg is lacking in terms of like art. So I want to go out there, have something big. Next, from there, we expand to Philly, we go to New York, and everywhere else.
Great.
Yeah.
What do you want to do in Stroudsburg to help it out? Like, do you think there's an audience there for it, or are you trying to bring the audience into Stroudsburg?
There's definitely an audience there. Not as much people who are into the arts as there are in the Valley. There's an audience there, but they don't have anything for the audience there.
Why isn't anyone providing something? Do you have any insight?
No, I'm not sure.
Because I know they have the Sherman Theaters up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They actually have a lot of really great shows and really great artists that come out
The Sherman
there.
Theater's amazing, and they're getting more diverse right now. I saw they just recently did the punk rock flea market there.
Yes. Apparently Keanu Reeves was there.
Yeah, I think he played a show there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was recent. I was like, since when?
Well, the thing is, the Screen Actors Guild strike is still going on. They're like almost 120 days in now, so he can't act. So I guess he got his band back together. That's the first time they played together in like 20 years, I was reading. It's been a long time.
Well, I'm happy for you.
I'm happy too. We got to make these places destinations, and I think that's why these collaborations are so important. Are you working with other artists in Stroudsburg?
I've had the pleasure of having the Create and Be, that's an artistic studio, Black-owned studio in Stroudsburg. I've had their work showcased in my magazine. So hopefully, fingers crossed, our next fashion show will be there. It's a great spot. It's basically right off of Main Street. And when there's an event there, people come out. So there's definitely a demand for more arts in the Poconos.
What kind of space is that? Is it a dance studio?
It was a dance studio, and then they renovated it, and now it's like a art, photography. They do some music shows there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. We'll have to come check out a show there.
Oh, you should.
I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I want to ask it because I want to see where the dialogue might go. Do you consider fashion a medium of art?
Yes, fashion is art because fashion is creation. I guess you can consider cooking art to some degree because cooking is also creation. But fashion is art because you're making something with your hands.
Because I'm not from the fashion world.
Okay.
I've visited, but I'm not from the fashion world. Do you think most designers consider themselves artists?
I would say yes because it makes them feel better.
Yeah? Little pat on the back for what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, especially, I don't know if it's so much the case here, but in Europe, from how I see it, you have a lot of mixing of like the fashion and art world. I know it happens a little bit here, but not as much.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, because I think they also have a different take on art. Like, I don't know, I feel like Americans would put a can in the middle of the street and be like, that's art.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of like that. There's two sides to it. On the one side, it's like everything can be art. Anything can be art. You can. I mean, people make art out of toothpicks and just little pieces of broken glass, right? But also, people can just do some really lazy stuff and call it art. So it's like that sliding scale of what is art and what's not art.
I think that one is subjective.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. It's subjective. That's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, I clearly feel that fashion is an art form, especially with the individuals you just mentioned and their take on it. They're trying to pull something into it because at the end of the day, clothing is a necessity, but what these individuals are doing, it's not a necessity.
Yeah.
It's an extra twist on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the artistic nature of it really comes in. Now, from these designers that you know of, do they do any other mediums of art?
Some of them sketch. Some of them make music. But in terms of like working with like physical other mediums of art, they mostly design.
Do you know of any networking event for fashion designers? Has that been a thing?
I honestly I go to fashion shows and I meet people and I talk to them and I get their contacts and I check out their work.
Where do you go to these fashion shows? I'm curious.
Philly, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's not many happening out here.
No.
No? Do you remember going to any fashion shows around here?
I went to one by Laura Bly.
Okay.
That was last year.
Where was that?
That was somewhere on Southside.
Southside Bethlehem.
Mm-hmm.
We had a bunch of fashion shows before the pandemic. We were really tapped in with the schools and students would host their own shows. And now because we were closed for 2 years in the pandemic and then we're slow for the first year or two after the pandemic, it's like a whole new group of people. I'm curious, when you first started getting into fashion, did you know about the Alternative Gallery?
I think I was, because I think I may have come to like a few shows during high school.
Music shows.
Probably.
Yeah.
I knew of it, but I didn't know as much about it as I do now.
So in this new phase, how did you reconnect and get back here?
Liz.
Elizabeth
Ramos.
Liz Ramos.
Yes.
That's right. And she shared the studio with you with the one open house.
Mm-hmm.
And you brought all those great pieces out.
Yep.
Yeah. And she's in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing artist.
Yes.
And she's so busy, as she should be because her work is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been hard for us to get her up for things here.
Yeah.
She's talking about curating a show with us over at the Americus Hotel as well.
That'd be amazing.
I would love it. And she wants to do something, really special because that's what she wants to bring to it, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you known Liz?
Me and Liz went to high school together.
Really?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You graduated the same year?
Yep.
Yeah? And what did you think when she moved to Philly? Were you like, I should go too?
No.
Because you got this belief in the Valley, it sounds.
Yeah.
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 And it's funny. I meet so many people like that they want to prop up what's here.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like this impossible task. Like, we'll do this. I know this event is going to be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's going to be great. And you feel like things are changing and they're moving in this certain direction. And then it just doesn't. Like, you think there's going to be more support for these types of events, but it just doesn't happen. And I don't know if it's we don't do them frequently enough. And I don't just mean we as the Alternative Gallery. I mean as an artistic community here in the Valley. What do you think it's going to take for there to be a regular flow of fashion shows that can actually be supported by the greater community here?
We have to connect with the right people. And we have to show that we are deserving of the platform that they are available to give us. Something that I think a lot of young artists are missing, especially in my age group, is that along with their creativity, they don't have a business mind. If you want to get stuff done, if you want to yield results with your work, you must have that logical part of your brain that says, I have deadlines, I have responsibilities outside of my art. That makes you a well-rounded person. I am professional. No one's going to work with a great artist who has zero professionalism. So we have to show them, I have all my stuff together. You take me or you leave me. I have my qualifications.
I think this is why collectives are important, because I think the average artist is not cut out to be a business person.
At all.
So you either need to have someone that has your back, or you got to trust basically a stranger to run things for you.
Yeah.
A stranger that might not be connected with what you're doing, that really is only in it for the money. And I know a lot of people think that's just fine, but when it comes to art, there has to be more of a connection than just money. Because otherwise you're going to get misled or taken advantage of, or both. So I think, you're very astute. I think you're not the norm as far as being business savvy. As much as it might seem, I am not business savvy at all. It's like breathing. It's something I just have to do. I have to get through it. But I am not a technical person. I'm a creative person. And we, as the Alternative Gallery, we've kind of always had that mission that artists can come here. We have an environment where it's focused just on them making their work, and then we can help with the business side of things without taking advantage of them, without being in it for the money. And we need more collectives like that, because I think for a lot of artists, they just want to be stuck in their head.
Yes.
And again, artists, we've said this in the past, create for yourself, get lost in those thoughts, but you got to know when to come out. You can't stay in that head forever. And if you're not good at business, find a friend that is.
Yep.
Start there. I'm sure you know some artists that aren't great at business, right?
Yes.
What advice do you give to them?
Get serious.
Get serious?
You're too old to be doing this stuff. Get serious.
Well,
Time is of the essence.
Hey, you could be a fuck up at any age. You don't have to.
Well, of course, right? But what I'm saying is pick yourself up before it's too late and you regret things. We have such a short time here. And for you to waste your time, but I'm having fun, I'm doing what I want, but you're still in the same place 5 years later, come on, you're doing something wrong. Get serious.
That reminds me of this Method Man interview from years ago where he hadn't put out music in a while, and he did this interview, and he's like, yeah, I've been obsessed with technology. And what he really meant was he was just playing a ton of video games and wasn't going to the studio and recording or writing. And then he realized it and he changed it. And I like now, like Method Man, he started this thing probably 7-8 years ago, maybe longer at this point, where as a challenge to himself, he wanted to see if he could write music without cursing. And he did it in such a way that no one noticed. No one noticed until he said so in an interview. Then people went back like, wait, no. And they went back and he was right. He hadn't cursed. It was a goal, a challenge he had given himself as an artist. And I think that's really important for artists is to challenge themselves.
Yes.
And I think, too, no matter how talented someone is, if they're not motivated, they're not going to get things done. And this is another reason why I think collectives are important. And by collectives, I don't mean 15, 20 artists. A collective could be like 2, 3, 4 people that just want to talk about this shared interest. They're excited to update their friends about it. And they're like, hey, what are you doing? And try to encourage them and give them like proper feedback. Do you agree that having artist friends like that around you helps you do your art at least more consistently?
No.
No.
Well, okay. My artist friends do their own thing. They're on their own timing. We encourage each other to continue with our craft, but you have to want it for yourself. Like where I am now, of course, my mentors and my mom and, have helped, but I would not be where I am if I didn't work for it and want it so bad. And not just want to be an artist and going with the flow, but I have this status and this picture in mind for myself that I know if I don't reach that, I won't be satisfied. So I strive toward it every single day.
How do you deal with failure when it happens?
Get over it and I just go again.
How? Like, is there any situation that you maybe fell on your face metaphorically and you're like, shit, how am I going to get out of this one? How am I going to dust myself off? Because failure is inevitable and it's all how you navigate through it.
Are we talking like an artistic situation or just like in general?
More artistic.
Okay.
But I'm sure with you, because you're a creative person, it's kind of, I would imagine, a similar approach.
Well, I got kicked out of college.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I was partying too much.
Please divulge. What kind of parties?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Now this is the real arts talk. So what kind of shit was going down?
Oh boy. In the village of Fredonia, which is a little bit over an hour from Canada, there's not much else to do but party. Party everywhere. Go to people's houses. I've been to people's houses at a party where the floor was basically caving in. That's how lit it was. Like, I had a great time. And it's just because, like, I grew up fairly sheltered. So when I got to college 8 hours away, I was like, yeah, I'm partying every day.
Time to let loose.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's where a lot of college kids find themselves. So, but, okay, partying is a normal part of college.
Yeah.
How'd you get kicked out?
I wasn't going to class.
Oh.
Yeah. But while my classes were going on, I was exploring Buffalo. I was going to vineyards and wineries and exploring nature.
So it was like an alternate education. You were still getting an
Exactly.
education. Yeah.
So I don't regret any of it. Like, obviously it sucks that like I got kicked out of college, but I'm back now and I feel so much more equipped to go into the real world with the experience that I've had.
But how did you feel when you first got kicked out? What was that like?
I felt crappy because of the expectations that people had of me. On my own, I felt fine. I knew that I was doing the right thing, but I felt bad because I had expectations placed on me.
You feel like you let people down.
Yeah, but then once their disappointment like simmered down, I looked at it and I was like, oh, that wasn't that bad.
What was your response to the disappointment where you're like, you know what, it wasn't for me. I got something out of it by doing this. I realized I need to take a different direction.
Yeah.
How did they respond to that?
I got yelled at a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
I got yelled at a lot.
Did you tell them about your aspirations to do anything else in that same conversation, or did that come later? Like when you got kicked out of college, did you know you wanted to pursue this fashion path?
No.
So you were exploring and figuring it out.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you didn't have any answers to give.
No. I just told them, that wasn't for me. I'm going to get serious, but give me some time to get myself back on my feet. And they didn't understand. And now I'm where I am. And now they still don't understand. But at least, I'm happy.
Hey, I feel you. My mom still tells me that one day she hopes I get a real job.
But you're doing so great.
Well, it doesn't pay the bills. That's the thing.
I know.
Your family wants to see you being able to take care of yourself in that
Right.
way. And it's not that, I don't want to do certain things. It's that we're so busy doing this.
Yeah.
It doesn't allow for other things.
Yeah.
So it's been a slow crawl. Not that I regret it. I wished things would have been easier. But I think a lot of artists, college doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
A lot of artists doesn't
It
work.
can, though.
It can. Absolutely it can. There's a lot of examples where it does. But I think because of the institutional approach to the arts, a lot of artists are like, I want to do what I want to do. Like they're there to learn technique, but they
Yeah.
kind of get a whole philosophy kind of instilled on them at the same time.
I would not recommend to an artist going to school for art. Go to school for something else and do your art on the side. Because from what I've seen and heard, when you go to school for an art, for music, for fashion, for whatever, they're teaching you their rules and basically beating that into your head. Go to school for marketing so you can promote yourself and do your art on the side.
Go to school if you're going to be a doctor. You definitely need that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I worked in the film industry. So that's the main thing I did when I lived in New York City. And it was there that I found out that actually kids that go to film school are less likely to get hired on film sets because they come out with this training
Yes.
and they think that they know exactly what to do. And even though you went to film school, you still got to start at the bottom, unless you know someone. Of course, if you know someone in this world, that's a game changer. But the average person, you start at the bottom, work your way up. And a lot of sets, a lot of productions, they would rather hire someone that knew nothing and was open to being trained because sets run differently. People are like, well, I went to film school and learned it this way, so I want to do it this way. Well, okay, great, but that's not how we do things here. A lot of times, I was working above people that did go to film school. You spend $25,000 a year to go to New York Film Academy. I wanted to go there at one point, but I also realized I couldn't afford it. So I think that translates well into the other aspects and other mediums in the art world.
Yeah.
Do you see anything like that with the fashion world, or is that, how do you even go to college for fashion? Like, I've never looked into that. I know there's the Fashion Institute of Technology up in New York. What's that about?
You create a portfolio. They decide whether or not they like your work or whether or not they think you're good enough, which already is like,
Very gatekeeping.
Yeah, exactly. And then they teach you their way of doing things. Obviously, you should learn how to drape, you should learn how to do all this other basic clothing construction things, but you can learn that from YouTube.
I'm glad that you said that because I think the better path, if you want to learn art, is to just work with someone that is doing it, that is willing to kind of show you and give you some tips. And you just got to jump in too at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I had a realization a long time ago that all these books I'm reading by filmmakers and people trying to teach screenwriting, I was like, if this guy is so good, why isn't he writing the movies that I watch? And I learned then that the people that really aren't great at it are the ones that typically become the teachers of it.
Yes.
And maybe they harbor some animosity.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is across the board, but this is definitely something I picked up on. And those that can't do, teach.
When I went to charter arts, so I'm not gonna name call, right? But you're right.
I thought you had a story. You don't have to give names,
Okay.
but like it seems you had some insight
What I
there.
will say is that what I've experienced when you go to school for the arts, they try to live through you.
Hell yes, they do.
That is so toxic as a teacher.
It's unnecessary pressure too.
Yeah. Because you want them to be you. They'll never be you.
No, it's like a parent trying to raise their child to watch the same movies and listen to the same music, which reminds me of this great quote. It's kind of relatable, but not totally. Some parents will do anything for their children aside from let them be themselves. I love that.
It's true.
I mean, it's something I kind of experienced, and it's not that my parents were bad at raising me. It was that they didn't understand what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to be on this path where okay, you're financially stable, you're going to have this, you're going to have that. Like, I was really good with computers when I was younger. I used to build my own computers, and my dad was trying to push me into going to college for that. And I was like, I don't want to do that. It's not going to make me happy.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, if you have money, who cares if you're happy? Wrong answer, dude.
It's true.
I want to be happy.
Yeah.
I'm poor right now, but I'm happy. Kind of. I mean, I wish I had less problems, but overall, I'm very fulfilled. I'm overly fulfilled. I'm overly stimulated. I'm overly worked, but it's what I love to do.
And that's self-actualization. I think we, as humans, one of our highest obligations is to self-actualize. Do it for your parents. Even if it's something that they don't like, imagine them when they were our age, right? These are people who had their own goals, dreams, and aspirations, and probably did not do that because somebody else had goals and aspirations from their parents and from their parents and from their parents. We need to self-actualize, fulfill the dream and the vision that we have for ourselves so we can pass that on to the next generations so they can self-actualize. It's important.
I think there's usually two reasons why someone tries to talk you out of your dreams. The first reason is maybe their dream didn't come true and they don't believe in dreams any longer.
Yes.
The magic is gone for them, so to speak. I think another reason is, and maybe the bigger reason, is jealousy.
Yeah.
They either didn't have a dream or weren't able to obtain theirs, or it wasn't what they thought it was going to be when they got it. So they try to talk you out of it. I have had more people in my life try to talk me out of my dreams than support my dreams.
Yes.
And that's, fortunately, I'm strong-willed.
Yeah.
Had I not been, though, I wouldn't still be doing this. Yep. And that's the thing that I think a lot of artists and creatives, especially if you're listening to this, you have to understand. Everyone around you is going to try to talk you out of what you're doing or what you want to do. Just push through the fog, because if you don't, you're going to give up on your dream. And you're going to look back 20, 30 years from then and be like, damn, what did I do? I kind of have a unique approach. I guess it's unique. I haven't had anyone tell me that this is how they see things. But for a long time of my life, I was trying to picture in my head me being an old man, on a porch, on a little rocking chair, looking out in some field, reflecting back on my life. Because at some point, hopefully that will be the case if I'm lucky enough to reach that. And would I be proud of the decisions I made? Would I have wanted to do things differently? I want to be proud in that moment. That's what I'm working towards.
Yes.
I want to be that old man sitting there and be like, you know what? I got up, no matter how many times I fell down, no matter who said not to do it, no matter how high the odds were stacked against me, I kept going. And even if I failed in the end, I spent my time pursuing what I love. That is still a success in my book. And for me, that's one of the hugest motivating factors for me is I see these really talented people that give up on their talents. And that is so heartbreaking. Yeah. You're very talented and good at this thing. You know it's what you want to do with your life, but life seems to keep you from it. And again, I think this is why we need creative folks to push each other.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we didn't talk about some of the other pieces of your show. You have some performers as well, some live performers. Indeed. Why don't we talk about some of these amazing live performers? Because I have been fortunate enough to see some of them live. Some of them are friends of mine.
Okay.
So I'm super excited.
Here's our lineup. Aurum, she's a local, fantastic voice, amazing voice. She's a local R&B singer. We have Maximili. We went to high school together, and he is easily one of the best guitarists I know of.
Yeah, I work with Max a lot. He's amazing.
He's great.
I have this suspicion that he was exactly the same in high school that he is now.
Yeah.
Unchanged,
Yes.
right? I knew it. He's
Yes.
just one of those dudes, man.
Next up, we have Rosie.
Rosie.
Rosie's
she's
another amazing singer.
hell of a voice on her.
Oh, fantastic. After that, we have McVille. He is a rapper. Really profound lyrics. I love his vibe. Then we have Hemonics. That is my good friend Mo. Mo's our DJ for the night. And Khan, Shiny Fishbowl.
And who's our MC for the evening. I believe I know who it is.
Our MC is MC B's the Hype, Ramel.
Hell yeah,
He's
that's
going
my boy.
to be bringing the vibe for the night. I'm so excited.
Yeah, when you said you needed an MC, he was my immediate first thought.
I can't wait.
Because, first of all, he puts on a hell of a show. He keeps people entertained, and he keeps them awake. And I love the fact that you're kind of mixing all these different things together, too. Was this the kind of MC you were intending? Because he's very lively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even know who we were going to have.
You just assumed it was going to show up in some form.
I knew it was going to show up in some form.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Yeah.
I remember we had a really great conversation at the Americus Hotel. That was at the opening with Liz.
Yes.
Right? What did you think of that event?
I thought it was great. I love getting people together in a space who are in the same field. You really got like a sense of the gravity and the volume of how many people love the arts and care about it here.
And the artist takeovers as well. You've been to some of those?
Yes.
Have you been to any artist meetups like that in the past?
Before the ones that have been hosted by the Alternative Gallery, never.
It's crazy. And the reason I ask that isn't to pat ourselves on the back. It's I'm trying to find if there are other artist meetups where to direct people to. And like we, as the Alternative Gallery, we had never been to any of these, which is over a long period of time. It suddenly dawned on us. We're like, okay, we've never had these meetups, and why haven't we considered this sooner?
Because a lot of people don't do them for whatever the reason.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange because like I wanted to have an event that was like a non-event.
Yeah.
Right? Like no structure, no talks. You don't have to bring out any of your work because you're working then.
Yeah.
I wanted the artists just hang out. And holy shit, I was not expecting the outcome.
Yes.
I know a lot of these artists, but when they're all in the same place together, you're like, wow, there are a ton of artists here. Why aren't there more support for these artists? You know, and I think that's why we have to do events like yours, but also we have to piggyback on other cities that are killing it.
Yeah.
And then we kind of fold into all of that, doing things in places like Stroudsburg. Because to me, it's a big connecting the dots game.
Yes.
We got to get all these places to kind of align and work together. So I know that this is your first event here, but moving forward, how often would you like to throw events? What's too much? What's too little?
I would want to throw 3 events per year.
3 a year?
3 a year.
I
mean, if they're big, obviously 3 a year. If they're smaller, then more.
Yeah. Would you ever do like an outdoor one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In summer?
Ooh.
Ooh.
Hey, if we do an Arts Fest again, we could talk about doing that. But
Okay.
Arts Fest is so expensive. I don't. I mean, if somebody wants to give us like $50,000, you know, then we're good. But without that, I don't know how we're gonna pay it off. Because in the past we've done Arts Fest, and then the gallery is paying off that debt all year long, and it's like, not that we don't want to have a festival, but there are other things we really want to do, and we have to kind of choose now. And with them being so much more expensive, but I think a fashion show at Arts Fest would be absolutely killer.
That would be amazing. Outside?
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Before we recorded the podcast, I took you over to the main gallery, and you got a little peek at the catwalk, the stage extension we were building. What'd you think of that?
I think it looks fantastic. I think it looks like a real fashion show.
You can say that. I'm not going to take any offense.
Like, the runway looks great. The stage looks great. The lighting is amazing. The space is already beautiful. So the atmosphere is going to be there.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have this place.
Yeah.
And it's cool that we can do stuff like this. And I said earlier, we've done a bunch of fashion shows before, but we never built a catwalk. That's how much we believed in what you're doing.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Or like, you
so
know what?
much.
She's awesome. She's got tons of great people working with her. We haven't done a fashion show in a while. Let's make things as legit as we can. And you had VIP seating too.
Yes.
Which you sold out of.
Yes.
Yeah, you got them VIPs coming, right?
Yeah. So we have VIP Platinum was the table side seating. However, if you want a seat and you still want to be a VIP, get those tickets because they're selling like hotcakes.
Yeah, you're doing really well. So tickets are, $20?
Tickets are right now, they're between 15 and 20. And at the door, they will be 20.
All right. And we recommend getting tickets online.
Yes.
Because we may sell out.
We may sell out, and we have a bunch of awesome promo codes. So stay tuned for that.
So yeah, if there are any tickets still available, you will be able to get them the night of the event, but we can't guarantee that. I guess if we sell out, we'll make an announcement.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be cool to sell out, right?
I think
that
we
kind
can.
of selling out. There's bad kind of selling outs too, but we're not going to do those, right? So what's the buzz going on about the show? What are people saying? What are they feeling?
People are feeling, oh, there's a fashion show? Oh, there's a fashion show? Oh, where? This is like, obviously we've had fashion shows from older designers, right? But to have a fashion show from a 23-year-old Northampton Community College student at an actual venue with designers, music, and vendors, they're like, oh, you're doing this? I'm like, yeah, come. I'm like, okay.
I love the fact that you're both hosting and showing your work.
Yeah.
Because I think you and me, we're kind of unique in that way where, like I said earlier, the people who teach don't usually do. And I've been mindful of that. And I don't want to be the kind of person where I'm running a gallery and supporting these artists because I suck at art or I'm afraid to take the leap and do my own thing. I want to do my own thing and support other artists, which is not easy.
Yeah.
It's tough because, like, I like to tell artists, create selfishly. When you're doing what I just described, you cannot be selfish about it because you're in charge of the group.
Yes.
All eyes are on you. But fortunately, it sounds like we both have very supportive groups that are super behind what we're doing. That's like, okay, I'm glad I did this because I'm not just supporting a bunch of people who aren't grateful for this amazing thing we're putting together, because that's the worst, right? And everyone's a volunteer.
Yes.
They're doing it because they want it to happen and they love it. And this is the kind of thing, like Alternative Gallery is talking about taking things on the road. Art shows, live performances, and even film screenings. Maybe we can talk about doing some kind of fashion show element with these events on the road.
Yes.
Whether you as an individual artist and or other fashion designers. What do you think about that?
I think that'd be great.
Yeah? Where would you like to go?
In locally?
Sure. No, like across the country. Like we're talking about Boston, New York, Los Angeles. We went to Miami for Art Bazaar last year. Checked it out. We want to do something down there. Where do you want to go?
Brooklyn.
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 I used to live in Brooklyn. I miss it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What part?
First, I lived in Sunset Park. Well, first I lived in Montclair, New Jersey before I moved into the city. Then I lived in Sunset Park and then Red Slope.
Okay.
So, yeah, I miss it. We went back a couple weeks ago, and on the way back, I'm like, why am I not living in New York anymore? So, yeah.
Can I be honest with you?
I want you to be.
I love the city, but I hate the city.
I have a love and hate relationship with the city as well, too. I think most people do.
You think most people do? I think a lot of people, like, hype it up.
I think most people that live there have a love and hate relationship with it.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone that lives there hates Times Square.
Well, I hate. Well,
but
okay.
they also acknowledge the significance and importance of Times Square because it's a center of commerce.
Right.
But they don't want to ever go there if they don't have to.
Yeah.
So we had a friend with us who was visiting from outside of the country who had never been there. So we showed her Times Square, and I was like, I want to get the hell out of here as fast as possible. Oh, all the guys dressed up in costumes trying to get you to pose for a picture and then harassing you for money. It's just like, nobody wants to deal with that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like too many people and all the restaurants there. I mean, I guess there are some good restaurants in Times Square now, but for the most part, they're so overly packed that you just want to get away as quickly as possible. So what's your love-hate relationship with it? Can you identify what it is? Is there anything specific or just a general feeling?
What I like about the Valley that New York doesn't have, that has made me respect the Valley so much more and appreciate it, is that there's no love there.
In New York?
No. I mean, there's creativity and there's growth and it's flourishing, but I can get pushed into a train track and nobody will help me.
Yeah, it's definitely very cutthroat. I actually got robbed in New York City when I lived there.
That's terrible.
Not like a gunpoint. I would have, weirdly enough, preferred that. They were more cowards about it. I was with a friend reviewing some footage for a short film she was directing that I was shooting. So I had my backpack with my laptop going over that footage, and I had my camera gear with me because I was starting a job that day. This was like 12 years ago. I was directing a web series, and I was getting paid $500 a day, and it was my first day. So I was meeting with my friend at this cafe, and then I was going to go and start this job, right? So we reviewed the footage. I put the laptop away. We're having a coffee, just chatting. And a guy comes up on my left side, and he accidentally spills a drink that gets all over me. It's a water, right? And he's like super like, oh, I'm sorry. And he's like, come over here and I'll dry you off. I was like, oh, okay. So then my friend's there at the table. A second person comes and distracts her. And while she's distracted, a third person takes my gear and runs off with it.
Oh my goodness.
And we never caught the person. And then when I arrived at that job and I explained to the producer what had happened, he very coldly told me, that's life in the big city.
Yeah, see?
No, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Oh my God, maybe we can make this work. That job was very dependent on me owning that camera.
Yes.
So because I didn't have the camera, I lost the job.
You see?
And then I had to start, remember I told you bottom rung? I had to go back to that. I went from making $500 a day, being able to direct stuff, even though it was just some non-important web series. It was a major step in the right direction for me as a director, and had to go back to being a production assistant just because I didn't have a camera. So yeah, it was tough. So yeah, life can be very, very hard. I thought that guy was just an asshole because that's not advice you give someone who's like literally in shock for the most part, having gone through this experience. You know, that's not what you do. But I think because the Valley is smaller and has more that hometown, small town vibe, you have a more communal aspect. I'm sure it exists in segments in New York, but the overarching structure of the city
is every man for himself.
When there's that many people, there's a sense of being anonymous.
Yeah.
And when you're anonymous, we see with social media where that leads. Mm-hmm. You could be a jerk off. You can, yell and say terrible things. And hey, well, no one's going to know it was me, so I can get away with it.
Yeah.
So I think that's right. And that's one of the things we should be more supportive and focus on here in the Valley is that we do have a tight-knit community. And we gotta come together and rely on each other to get this done. Mm-hmm. Because if you had to do this fashion show on your own, how would that go?
I don't know.
I probably wouldn't. So right there, that tells you, right?
Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to say about the fashion show?
Again, the whole point of this is to support the things that we have coming, the things that we have had going on in the past, and the things that we currently have. This is a culmination of people that I've known for a long time, new people who I want to meet. It's a networking event. It's not just a fashion show. It's not just a place for us to hang out. This is like a glimpse of the beginning of what we can really do here.
I love it. And I'm hearing more and more from artists like yourself that there are so many talented people here and so much potential for this place to really pop off and be a true area of art and culture. Mm-hmm. It's not yet, but the more I talk to people like you, the more I know it can happen. And if we stay in this path, I think it will happen. And it's really up to us to make happen because who else is going to step in and do something like this?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that there are no other fashion shows happening aside from the one you mentioned, that kind of says it all. So good on you for doing this. High five to you. And again, for anyone interested in coming out to the event, it is called Pulse, a fashion and music fusion. It is on Saturday, November 11th, right here at the Alternative Gallery. And it's featuring 4 designers, 6 live performances, a variety of vendors, and tickets are still available. You can go on their Eventbrite if you go to Alexa's social media, which is shop_SERAPHIM. You can get tickets through there, or if for some reason they don't sell everything there, you can get them the night of. Doors are at 7 p.m.
Yes.
Live performances at 8 p.m. Mm-hmm. Fashion show at 9 p.m.
Yes.
Makes it really easy. 7, 8, 9. And then after that, we're just going to kick it and have a good evening together.
Yeah.
So tickets are night of, they're $20, and there's a sliding scale on Eventbrite, but come the night of the show, it's going to be just $20, and the VIP premium is sold out, so you missed out. But you can still get a VIP seated ticket if you would like to. Otherwise, you got to be like one of us regular folk and go stand in the back and watch the show.
Use code SPARTAN for $5 off.
Ooh, there you go. Save $5.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a shout out to anyone before you wrap things up?
Yes. Shout out to my mother, Alexa-Nichole Villafana. That's my best friend. She's my support. Shout out to Natasha, who's also been helping me throughout this process. Shout out to Brandon for allowing us to have the show here. And shout out to God, because without him, I would not be where I am right now.
We've been talking with Alexa-Nichole Villafana, who is hosting the Pulse Fashion and Music Fusion Show here at the Alternative Gallery this weekend. I can't wait to see all your stuff. I tried to stay out of there to make it more of a surprise for me. I guess this week when we do the run-through, I won't have as much of a chance to do that, but I like the reveal and the mystique of the show when it first happens. Because you know how it is when you see things in every little step.
It kind of ruins the fun.
Yeah, exactly. And I like being surprised. Yeah. So I'm super excited. I love what I saw. I'm very excited. And next time we'll have to get Natasha here since she couldn't make this one too.
Yes.
So, and I've had artists coming up to me. They want to like do little group sit downs of different types of artists, which I love that idea. So we have a few mics now. We want to get some more microphones so we could start doing some group chats. Would you like to come back for something like that?
Oh yeah.
Awesome. We'll have to, like I said, bring Natasha for that one. So maybe some of your designers in the future, bring
Yeah.
them on. So you let me know.
I sure will.
All right. We'd love to have them on the Art Bazaar. Alexa, thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for tuning in to the Art Bazaar. I hope we inspired you. I hope Alexa gave you some insight into why fashion is art. And we hope you make it out to the show this weekend. See you next time on Art Bazaar.